What's up, guys? Brallus here. So I woke up to some news this morning that Sony dropped a blog on official PlayStation blog, kind of announcing the PlayStation 5. You know, no fancy conventions, anything like that. They just went straight to it. I looked it over. I said, okay, let's take a look at what they have. Now, I'm going to jump straight into it. I don't want to do any fancy, updates or check out this and that, whatever. Also, if I sound cranky, it's because I just woke up. And I am. So let's jump straight into it now. So PlayStation dropped this blog this morning, an update on next-gen PlayStation 5 launches holiday 2020. So I wanted to kind of jump into the Wired magazine article that was released that they linked to in this article, which is basically the reveal, where the reveal is, and just kind of go over some speculation. I took out some key points from the article. So, I'm not going to do like a fancy, really fast, update one and like give like a little bullet point on the screen and go over it. I'm not going to do anything that fancy. We're called Talk Gaming because we like to talk gaming. So we're going to talk about the article. And I want to do more of a discussion video so you guys can leave your feedback in the comments of what you guys think, what you guys, speculate as well. And I'm going to kind of give you guys some takeaways from the article in case you didn't have time to read it, so you guys can listen like via like kind of like a podcast, or if you just want to watch the video, you can continue watching. So, Sony, they skipped E3. They didn't want to do any sort of fancy, reveal, anything like that. For whatever reason, I kind of like that new approach. I mean, trade shows are cool. E3 is entertaining to watch, but I mean, we all know that it's just corporate shill mumbo jumbo, right? It's just a way for companies to hype up, the next product and show, we've seen it with Anthem, right? They show something that's completely not even relevant to the actual game at the time. For those of you who don't know, Anthem, in 2000, I think it was 2017 at E3 when they showed it off. That wasn't even a gameplay demo. That was a cutscene, basically. That was a CG trailer. And then the developers figured out that was what they were going to have to make, and they ended up making it about 16 months later. That's why it ended up being so bad, but that's the short story of it. But anyway, so it's a trade show. It's a show fest. It's like one giant commercial, right? And it's entertaining to watch because you get some good moments out of there, like Keanu Reeves, like Nakamura. I think I forgot her name, Akira Nakamura or whatever. The hilarious little girl that was getting all excited on stage. So you get some cool moments out of it. Some cool announcements. But for the most part, it's just it's a corporate shill fest, right? So Sony's going a more modest route, and taking more modest approach. And they dropped this blog this morning talking about the new PlayStation 5, that it was being revealed in the link in the Wired magazine article. And then they basically signed out. So let's switch over to that article. So in this article called Exclusive, a deeper look into the PlayStation 5, it's a fairly long article. It's a quick read. You can probably get it done in a few minutes. But I went through the whole thing, peered through all the corporate speak and the PR talk and everything. And I pulled out some main key points. So the first one I want to go over is the release date, holiday 2020. That's done. So we got two consoles coming out holiday 2020. We got Xbox's Scarlet, which doesn't officially have a name yet, and then we have the PlayStation 5, which is the official name. Who would have guessed, right? Now I have both the Xbox One X and the PlayStation 4 Pro. I am not biased. I love them both equally. I was a major Xbox original fan and PlayStation 1 and 2 fan. For Xbox 360 generation, I was a 360 fan over PS3. Sorry, PlayStation 3 was inferior to the Xbox One, in my opinion. And then the last generation, I flip-flopped. I was mainly all PlayStation 4 until the One X came out, and then I switched over because I like power. So, moving on. Ray tracing is one of the main things that they touched on. So for those of you guys that don't know, and I meant to do this, I meant to pull up a little bit of like an example of ray tracing. But ray tracing is not just with visuals, like lighting and ambient lighting and that kind of thing. It's also with sound as well. So I'm looking it over here. So you can see some examples of ray tracing. Obviously, I can't do the sound, but for example, here's a good one. I believe this is Battlefield 5. You can see in the puddle, the reflection here. This is with ray tracing on. If you look at the gravel and even the reflections on the gun and the scope, you can see the different examples of like what ray tracing can do for the quality of a game. It's pretty incredible. So it makes it more realistic. So for example, on the left, you see the puddles look a little bit. They look video gamey, right? They just look very, really video gamey. They look wet. but they just don't have any sort of detail on them. They just look like just wet spots. Here on the right, you can see with the ray tracing, they have full reflective spots. They have full reflective lighting. They reflect, the buildings. So it adds a sense of immersion that you didn't think was there, which is pretty incredible. You can see on the buildings as well. On the background, there's a little bit more shadow detail with ray tracing, and this is just an early demo. So with the amount of capability they're going to have to be able to pull off some really cool things, I'm pretty excited for that. So they went over ray tracing as kind of a bigger, focus for the next generation, and that's pretty cool. I'm really excited that they're experimenting in that stuff. And I mean, on the topic of pricing and availability, holiday 2020, I don't know. There's still speculation about how much the price is going to be. I'm guessing it's going to be, they're going to have to stay pretty consumer friendly, but for the amount of hardware they're packing in there, they're going to have to stay around the $500-$600 mark if they don't want people to get upset, which people will. But here's the thing, guys. Look, I paid $3,000 for the PC and that's including the dual monitor setup. That's including the mouse and the keyboard, right? So that's another $1,000. So about $2,000 for a really, really nice PC. And I'm running a 1080 Ti, 32 gigs RAM, an i7 7700, I believe, or 7800. So I'm packed, right? But the thing is that these consoles have traditionally been a little bit less expensive than PCs, which is the attraction. This is why people buy consoles, right? It's more consumer friendly on the wallet, I guess, and it's more simple. So they're gonna have to hover around the $500-$600 mark. That's kind of my assumption. I'm cool with it. I mean, if you're gonna give me something that my PC currently now does in a small box form where I don't have to fuck around with it and add and update and troubleshoot all the time, I'm cool with that. I'll pay that much money. I have no problem with that. So that's ray tracing. So they went over ray tracing. They talked about how it's going to add, a lot of details, a lot of extra oomph to the environments. So you see right here, complex lighting and 3D sound effects in 3D environments. So they didn't really touch on what the sound effects were. I'm kind of curious to see what that's going to be, but I guess we'll find that out later. So next point is the solid state drive. So they went over that next, the solid state drive. And Mark Cerny, I think it's Cerny, I'm pretty sure it's Cerny. He's the one he was the architect who built but he put together the look of the PlayStation 4. And I think all the PlayStations before it. I hope he didn't do the PlayStation 3 because that was a mess. But yeah, he was the lead architect on the PlayStation 4, so he's working on this one as well. They talked about the solid-state drive, the game install, how the game install is going to work, which is pretty cool. What they're saying is that you're going to be able to have more options when it comes to the install. It's not like you just put in a disk and then you let it install and then that's it. You're going to insert the disk in, and it's going to be on a 100 gigabyte 4K Blu-ray disc, is what they're saying. And what you're going to do is you put it in the disk, and it's going to give you options for what you want to install. And so far, the only options that they've mentioned are single player, multiplayer. So I'm sure that they're going to add other options later, maybe graphical assets. I don't know. We'll see, but that's pretty cool. If some people are just buying the next Call of Duty to skip the single player and they just want to play the multiplayer, you can choose to just install the multiplayer, so it's more friendly on your hard drive. But an SSD is going to be a big game changer, guys. I don't think a lot of people realize that. That's going to cut down those load times. It's going to cut down those transitions on a game like Elder Scrolls where you go into a building and you've got to wait. It's going to be almost instantaneous from what they're saying. So I'm pretty excited about that. It's gonna improve load times as well. Game install is gonna be more fast. It's gonna be more rapid. You'll be able to jump into your games faster. Everyone's gonna be in the same playing field. It's gonna be even. So it's pretty cool. It's gonna make things a lot faster. Hopefully it'll speed up the UI as well. I'm pretty sure it's going to. They talked about that as well as a completely revamped user interface in this article. If you scroll down a little bit here, this is where they talk about game installation. It's still mandatory. Where is it? Cool. What's the UI actually look like? This is where they start talking about it. So the UI, woo, that's that morning voice. So the UI is going to be revamped. They felt like, and I felt like it as well. I felt like, at first it was cool when the PlayStation 4 launched and it had that really simple UI that just worked. The Xbox One's UI was trash when it first came out, okay? The Xbox One UI, it feels like it has its own operating system just to function, and it doesn't function very well. It freezes, it crashes, it takes forever to load anything, right? The PlayStation 4's was pretty rapid. It was pretty almost instantaneous, but not quite. There was just the problem with that one was just a lot of sub menus. So if you wanted to, and this is before the PlayStation update where they added the little sub screen that you can go into while in the game. But in order to do anything with the menu system, like find your friends, invite your friends on PlayStation 4, before you had to completely hit the PlayStation button, leave the game, and then go find your friends or whatever. And with the new update, you're able to just hold it down and bring up the little sub screen. But then still, sometimes if you click on an option like create a party chat, sometimes it'll pull you out of the game. Sometimes it doesn't, depending on how you start the party chat. But it was just it was kind of it felt like an afterthought. It didn't feel like they'd put much into it. And going to your friends list, everything was kind of cluttered and clunky. So it looks like they're completely revamping the UI, which is awesome. They're going to make it more user-friendly, so you can see more of what your friends are doing. You can see, not achievements, but accomplishments, awards that you get. So they say somewhere in this article, this is pretty cool too. There's no way to tell what single-player missions you could do or what multiplayer matches you can join. The PS5 will change that. It's fast to boot games. See, here you go. Single-player games will provide information like what missions you can do and what rewards you might receive for completing them. So it's kind of like an achievement system, but they'll maybe tell you what you get for rewards at the end. I'm not exactly sure what they mean by that. I'm hoping that they don't mean they're going to have spoilers in there, like, oh, complete this mission, get this chain gun, So we'll see. That's pretty cool, though. I'm excited for the new user interface. But the next biggest talking point on here, or probably the biggest one overall, was the DualShock 5. So they haven't actually confirmed the name for it. See, it says right here, though Sony says it hasn't had a name yet, but it's going to be DualShock 5. If they're staying with tradition of PlayStation 1 through 5, they'll stick with DualShock 5. So Sony talks about a lot of the features that are in the PlayStation 5, and I talked to a few people this morning between waking up and reading the article and making this video, and they were like, I mean, it's haptic feedback. I mean, all controllers have rumble, right? I thought it had haptic feedback. Who cares? The thing is, guys, is that I know some people don't like vibrating controllers. I love it. I think it's cool. I think it's a cool feature. It makes things more intense. If you play with for example, if you play on a PlayStation 4 or Xbox and you're playing your game and it says controller battery's low and it stops rumbling to save battery, that's what it does. It goes into like that failsafe mode to preserve battery. Do you notice a difference? You really do, because you don't really notice how much vibration adds in immersion to a game until you lose it, basically. So they talk a lot about the DualShock 5 here and the vibration. And so I wanted to talk about that as well and just kind of give some of my feedback and my predictions. So number one, haptic feedback is the biggest thing that they're talking about. Now, what haptic feedback is, Xbox has it to an extent, but it's not as detailed as they're saying here. And the people I was talking to this morning were like, well, Xbox has it, who cares? And I was like, well, no. If you read this article and you really pay attention, they have adaptive triggers, they have adaptive joysticks, the buttons, like the controller feel itself. The way it rumbles is going to be a little bit different. So in this article, they talk about walking through sand, right? Walking through mud. For example, down here, it says sand felt slow and sloggy. Now this is the adaptive the haptic feedback on the adaptive joysticks. So the joysticks are going to have a rumble system of their own, to where if you're walking through mud, if you're walking through ice, for example, the sand will slow down the sticks. It'll feel a little bit more rough the way that it vibrates. If you're walking through, trying to walk over ice, it's going to be a little bit more slippery. It'll feel like your character is gliding. Now, this person got a hands-on with the controller, and they said that's exactly what it felt like. They said sand felt slow and sloggy, mud felt slow and soggy. On ice, the high-frequency response made the thumbsticks really feel like my character was gliding. Jumping into a pool, I got a sense of the resistance of the water. On a wooden bridge, a bouncy sensation. So I'm really curious to see how you get those feelings from the joysticks. I can understand individual rumble in the joysticks, but I wonder if the joysticks are going to feed back, you know what I mean? Like if they're going to provide some kind of resistance as you're pushing them forward to move forward or something like that. So that's going to be really interesting. That's going to add a whole level of immersion to these games. So it's really cool. Now they're going to have obviously adaptive feedback on the triggers. So if you're shooting a gun, you're actually going to feel in the right hand more because you're pulling the trigger, as opposed to the left. It'll still rumble a little bit, but that's something that Xbox had. However, what's really cool is that they're going to adapt the haptic feedback to what gun you're shooting. So for example, if you're shooting an M4A1, an assault rifle, That's an assault rifle, guys. M4A1 is an assault rifle, okay? It shoots fully automatic, okay? If you shoot an M4A1 assault rifle, it's gonna have kick, it's gonna have pull. If you're shooting a chain gun, a minigun, that's gonna have a whole different feel than if you're shooting a pistol, right? Or an M4A1. So they're gonna customize the experience based on what gun you're shooting. So overall, it's gonna make for a much more immersive experience, which is what I'm really excited for. So that's really cool. Now they also they actually threw some shade at Xbox at one point in this article. Where is it at here? Yeah. So they talked about the larger capacity battery, which is awesome, thank God, because the Xbox or the PlayStation 4 battery lasts around 8 hours, sometimes even less, depending on how much play, what game you're playing, feedback, how bright the light bar is on the top. So they said that the DualShock 5 looked very similar to the DualShock 4. But it uses a USB-C type connector instead, which for faster charging, I guess is the new thing everyone's going for now is the USB-C, which is cool. I like that. Don't give me anything proprietary. Give me something I can use anywhere, right? I can use my Nintendo Switch controller charger in my PlayStation 4. Cool with that. Save me money. Thank you, Sony. Now the DualShock 4. I wasn't a huge fan of. I dealt with it, even if, especially when I was in my prime for PlayStation 4 playing, and I was playing that more than the Xbox. I dealt with it. It was way more comfortable than the DualShock 3. I'll definitely say that and everything before it. But I have large hands, guys. Look at these hands. They're fucking huge, right? I'm 6'2". Those controllers cramp my hands holding it like this. I need asymmetrical sticks, which is why I prefer the Xbox One controller. So I'm cool with the fact that they are keeping it similar, so they're not going to create something like that boomerang controller they once had. Like that was an idea that they threw around, and I think that was for the PlayStation 3. And people were like, "Fuck no! Like we're not playing with that shit." So they went back to the the DualShock 2 and redid it basically. So I'm glad that they're not doing anything that outlandish, but I want to change. I want asymmetrical sticks. I mean, I know I'm not the only one who feels the same way because Sony has officially licensed controllers that provide asymmetrical sticks. Give me a controller like there's one that Kotaku posted the other day that is interchangeable with the D-pad. You just literally flip-flop the D-pad. You put the stick up here, the D-pad down here, or you can change it, have the stick down here, D-pad up here. Very similar to a DualShock controller. So give me something cool like that. That's really cool. But anyways, I'm getting off track. Going back to that, they have a large capacity battery, which is excellent. And they said with the haptics motors and the larger capacity battery, the DualShock 4 will still come in a bit lighter than a current Xbox controller with batteries in it. Ooh. So Microsoft needs to get their shit together, and they need to provide a controller that has a rechargeable battery in it. It's been too long. Batteries are old school. They go through so quick. I mean, I bought a new controller and I really like the background. I was the new Gears 4 or the Gears 5 K controller, the gray white one. It was really cool. And I like the back of it. The battery compartment cover has a little symbol on it. It matches the color of the controller. Now, I do have rechargeable battery packs for my other Xbox controller, and I have an extra one, but I didn't want to use it because you have to use a different back. But I was going through batteries so quickly with that controller, like just Duracell AA batteries, that I just got annoyed with having to fucking switch them out all the time. It's costing money. So I just went back to using a rechargeable battery, and I think Microsoft needs to do that. So I'm glad that Sony's still going that route, and they're not changing that. Now, they talked about the dev kit for a second. They talked about how the dev kit looked very similar to the dev kit that was rumored, which is this. I'm hoping that that's not what it looks like. I mean, I don't give a fuck, okay? As long as the thing plays, if the thing is fast and it plays well and it gives me what I need, whatever. You can make it look like a fucking spaceship. I don't really care, okay? But I hope they come up with something sexier. I think it'll be sexier. If Mark Cerny's on the job and he knew what he did from the PlayStation 3, and he was able to put together the PlayStation 4 as excellently as he did. I mean, that's a sexy machine. PlayStation 4 Pro, not so much. It looks like a cheeseburger. But the PlayStation 4 original and the Slim are sexy machines, okay? This is not sexy. I hope they change this. This literally looks like something out of like a Space Odyssey movie back in like the 50s, 60s, 70s, okay? This is fucking hideous. I hope they fix that. So they go over that a little bit, but they say, there's nothing set in stone, nothing's final. I'm like 99% sure they're going to change that, which is good. But yeah, so the big one right now, the big thing that they're talking about right now, sorry, I was reading it. It was, they're talking about, oh shit, I just lost it. They didn't say anything about games, what they're working on, any announcements, which naturally they're not going to. They didn't even release official specs for this yet. But they said that they're working on a big one, a big game. So what that big game is, I can only assume. And he said it. I'm trying to find the piece of it, the piece of the article where he says that. But he says we're working on a game right now. The guy who worked on Shadow of the Colossus was the last game he worked on. He says, we're working on a big game now. I'll leave you guys to speculate. Here it is. I'll let you figure out the rest. What's the rest? It's not going to be Gran Turismo. Definitely not. I think that series is dead. I think Forza's crushed it. And I think just racing games like that in general aren't doing as well as they used to. It could be another Killzone. It could be another Infamous. So it's going to be a PlayStation 4 exclusive for sure. We'll see. It could be not Siphon Filter. That'd be amazing. But it could be. Those are my two. I guess my biggest speculations are Killzone. It could be the fuck did I just say earlier? It could be Killzone. It could be Infamous. So those are going to be the ones I'm assuming. But those are my biggest takeaways, guys, from the PlayStation 5 Wired article. I wanted to keep it very simple. Wanted to keep it discussion based. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you guys are excited for it, let me know. If you guys are leaning towards Xbox One Scarlet the fuck ever or PlayStation 5, let me know what you guys are leaning towards and what you're most excited for. So thank you all for listening, for chatting with us. Be sure to leave some feedback and we'll get back to you. We always respond the best we can as long as it's constructive and you're not just being a dickhead. If you are a dickhead, we'll probably just respond sarcastically. So we'll see you guys on the next Talk Gaming. See you guys.